Right, welcome everybody to this Tiger Team session. I'm Richard Brent, I'm the head of content here at Burlington Media Group, which includes LPM. I'm sure most of you know our media and events brand for the SME legal sector. Tiger Team is a strand that we launched back in 2020 when problem solving really sort of took off to a whole new level, I think it's fair to say. It's an idea that stems from an academic paper back in the 60s that suggested that it's a good idea to bring people from a diverse group of backgrounds, wherever you might find them in an organization connected to a particular challenge, together to avoid groupthink and allow them to sort of thrash an idea out together with their multiple perspectives, with the different hats that they most likely wear. LPM Tiger Team, this is the fourth installment in our 2023 series. We started off asking people around the challenge with their core technology stack and how they set about deciding what technology they need and how to weigh up the different options effectively. We then moved on in our second installment to look at the automation gap, why SME law firms are perhaps not using automation as much as they thought they could potentially, a combination of both human and technical factors. Then a couple of months ago, it was the turn to client experience. So how can you improve client experience, both with everything from onboarding clients through to listening, feedback, and of course client service, and the role technology, including artificial intelligence, might play in the client value proposition. And today it's a deep dive into this new world. I say new world. Artificial intelligence isn't new, but there's certainly been a surge in fresh interest in it in the last 12 months. And we're going to talk to our panel of experts today about artificial intelligence, particularly as it applies to the talent proposition. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel today. We've got Sarah Charlton, who wears several hats, but is, among other things, CEO of the law firm Eaton-Evans and Morris. She's also Silex Chief Assessor for the Professional and Legal Skills module, and has acted for law firms in many different capacities over the last 35 years, including CEO, of course, and COFA. We've also got Trevor Worth here, who is the founder and managing director of Portcullis Legals. He also has over 35 years experience in the legal profession. He's run his business since 22 years old. And he recently, well, not recently, actually, like a few years ago, just before the pandemic, introduced what might be the first 4-day week in the legal profession. The 4-day week is obviously something that's had a lot of interest in business generally, or the idea of obviously giving people more flexibility at least. We'll find out whether it was this idea of having a 4-day week that led one newspaper, I don't have the name of it, to label him the best boss in the world. Interesting that. We also got Graham Sweeney, who is the managing partner for law firm Schofield Sweeney. Graham qualified as a solicitor in 1996 and had a significant period as a litigator, but then he moved into the management side of legal. First, actually, in IT, but then moving up to become managing partner in time. In March 2020, he became managing partner of Schofield Sweeney. And finally, we've got Caden Smith, who is director for inside sales at our partner for this year's series of Tiger Teams, Net Documents. Net Documents, I'm sure you will know, is a content and document management platform, and this year Net Documents entered the generative artificial intelligence space with a new suite of, or what will become a new suite of products, ND Max, and Caden will be able to tell us a little bit more about what that involves. First of all, I'm going to go around our experts and ask them to introduce themselves briefly, their firm, so that we've got some context for the discussion, and also to tell us what the current state of play with generative artificial intelligence is in their firms. What's the mood? What's the ethos, if you like, philosophy around that after a year of it being out there for us to explore. So, Graham, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right.
Thanks, Richard. Hello, everybody. Yeah, for those who don't know, Schofield Sweeney, we're based up in West Yorkshire, in the north of England, predominantly a commercial practice, albeit with a good chunk of private client work and a little bit residential as well. Over the last sort of year or so in particular, we've become far more focused on how we can use technology to improve our client service delivery and do things differently as well as just better. That's where AI sort of falls into this space, and we're interested to see where AI takes us in that. I think it's still early days yet in terms of where it's going. I think at the moment I see AI is potentially slotting into what I'd term as search/research, drafting and review. I think it's one of the few technologies where there's been a huge amount of interest from a very early stage amongst the whole organisation. But we're just very interested at the moment where it's going to take us, and sort of keep, I think, as most people are, keeping a keen eye on what the opportunities are and where it will go, and hopefully something that Caden will be able to enlighten us on, that what's coming down the path from the actual suppliers in due course.
Mm-hmm. You talked about research there being a clearer use case, perhaps. Is it something that you've already got a policy around how your lawyers or others are allowed to use it?
Yeah, we acknowledge that ChatGPT was here, and it arrived with a huge fanfare, and everybody was using it, and I use it, and I find it a really useful tool in the right context. As a result, we realised that actually, rather than try and ignore it or tell people not to use it, we were better putting a policy in place around how it could be used and where it should be used. So we've said to people, yeah, you may use tools such as ChatGPT. However, there are safeguards in place that they have to acknowledge that they've done that. It has to go through a second pair of eyes so that they can check that that's correct. And the most important thing from my point of view is ultimately it's about delivering a human service to human beings, and an awful lot of time the output from tools like ChatGPT is still quite robotic. So we see it at the moment as it's a nice starting point for people in research activities, but it is not the finished or the polished product. It sort of gets them moving in the right direction and does that early digging for them. But they have to acknowledge where their work has come from and which bits, and how they've backed it up and verified it. But they're allowed to use it as an early tool, early starter.
Thank you. Yes, interestingly, actually, when we held our annual LPM get together, our LPM conference in early July this year, we always do some live polling, and one of the statements actually we put was, my firm will be using generative AI to create legal documents for clients within, and then we gave them some time periods. So actually creating legal documents for your clients, I was quite surprised that almost a quarter of the people in the room, I think we had about 70 or 80 people, senior legal leaders, said within a year they thought that the firm would be using this to create legal documents for their clients. 2/5 within 2 years. So Trevor, same to you. If you tell us a little bit about the context of your law firm, and then whether your approach thus far to generative AI sort of marries up with what Graham just said, or are you taking a different tack?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. A lot of it is echoing exactly what Graham's just said, to be fair. We're a niche law firm down in Plymouth, so we cover Devon and Cornwall. That's our region, really. We only specialise in estate planning, inheritance tax, and all those sorts of very sexy areas of law, as we always know. We focus really on our service above all else. And whilst hopefully our advice is always good and sound and up to date and advantageous to clients, we're a service-led model, and I think AI is certainly going to help us in that direction, because again, to touch on one of the things Graham mentioned there, is that whilst everyone's embracing chat GPT, and we certainly are, we see it as a first stage of this whole process. But it frees us up to become more human, which is really important, because if we're talking about providing great service, and that's one of our differentiators, then we need to make sure that the AI and ChatGPT type of offering is there to free more time up to give better service and to be more human. So interestingly, yesterday, we've not had anyone at interview stage up till yesterday that as mentioned, have we embraced AI, ChatGPT, and all those things? And someone did at an interview yesterday, a 24-year-old legal exec, and it was like a eureka moment. Someone's actually come to an interview and asking us about how we use it. Are we prepared to move forward and be innovative in those spaces? And I welcome it, because I think it will free us up in so many ways. I mean, I've said before to some of my colleagues, what we can do with things like chat is buy us our time back, as long as Graham has said, a second pair of eyes oversee what's being produced. And then we can use it for marketing tools to clients and put it on our socials, and there's all sorts of things that can be done. But at this stage, we're using it mainly for research, discovery, and marketing. But we're quite excited by the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Trevor. Okay, and Sarah, what's your sort of start of 10 on this topic? Are you seeing similar enthusiasm, or are you similarly enthusiastic in your CEO role? And what sort of areas do you see this making impact fastest?
So good morning, everybody. I am a CEO of a very small practice in South West Wales, and we flitter between about 25 to 30 members of staff, very much typical high street. We do family, conveyancing, commercial, agricultural, various different types of work. I would echo what Graham has said in relation to AI being very much in its infancy stage, and it does provide a sort of good foundations to consider where you're going to go with it. I would say that our model echoes Trevor's. So we're very, very much sort of client focused. So we do see it as a tool that sits in the background largely, because we have been recruiting people that have the social skills, high emotional intelligence to be able to engage with clients. That means that we have a very mixed bag in our business of tech, so there's that we've got people that will obviously naturally resist it, and then people that will embrace it, and then everything in between. So I guess the pace is perhaps slower than how my excitement and enthusiasm would be for AI, but it's obviously important taking everyone on the journey. I know there's been an awful lot of noise around the legal work, but for me personally, I think there's still creases to be ironed out in how that's going to work out, how you manage the risk of that. And we're in the same stage that Graham is around putting policies. We're not going to just be turning around and say you can't use it because we don't understand it and there's risk. It's very much about controlling that risk and encouraging people to use it, but having that transparency. So if you're developing a member of staff like a trainee solicitor or a paralegal, you're going to want to know whether they've used ChatGPT to produce that, because then is that their own work? There's obviously lots of complications that come that sit within that. I feel that in our firm, perhaps maybe some of it's because I'm more operational, more compliance, I see it playing a part, less around doing the legal work, but more around the client experience, being able to onboard clients in a format, in a delivery style that they're more comfortable with. I think that we see it as a tool that's going to hopefully, help with compliance. So risk management is huge, isn't it? To be able to use AI to factor in probability, likelihoods of things happening, not happening. There's a widespread use that can help with Lexel, CQS, all of the stuff that takes all of our time so much. So we're freeing, maybe a different area. So I then think that will produce opportunities. So although there may be a sense of nervousness around, will admin support, be lost? Yes, probably there will be an element of that, but there's huge opportunities to come in, on a decent salary at a decent level, but also there's opportunities for people to start thinking about, if you are in an admin job and you're, I don't know, very early on your career, you've only been doing it 2 or 3 years, start thinking about retrading, because all of these jobs of tech, whether that's, chatbots or whatever it is, these opportunities are going to arise. So if people, instead of people being scared, the message should be, these are opportunities here. Start thinking about careers, thinking about, double hatting, especially a small business like ours. Nearly every member of staff has 2 roles. They'll have their primary role, but they might have a second role, which is HR. Another role might be welfare officer. Another role might be, training and development. So we're giving middle managers already a second role, so that, if I got run over by a bus tomorrow, the firm carries on ticking over.
That's very interesting. Yeah, a lot of the conversation tends to focus on the lawyer's workload, doesn't it, and freeing them up, as we've alluded to already and have done previously, to sort of add more value to clients. But very interesting that you see lots of potential on the operational side, and I think we will come back to that. But I'm going to come to Caden first. Caden, I mentioned ND Max, which is Net Documents' sort of foray into this, obviously after having done lots of research into what firms might want or need in this space, and you launched it with your product within the platform Pattern Builder, which is a tool set to enable people in different lawyers in different parts of the world, legal areas in different parts of the firm, to create their own workflow automation apps, isn't it? Tell me how this looks from Net Documents' standpoint.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. I think I really liked something that Trevor said around, the ability to use, using AI allows us to be more human. And I think that from a starting point, AI is here, and it's here to stay. It's going to be in our personal lives. It will be in our professional lives. We can't really run from this, and it's going to be really helpful. There's a reason that ChatGPT was the fastest application to ever reach, I think it was 100 million users or something in history by a long shot, because it's a tool that can be so helpful, and it can be really easy to use and get really good results and things like that. So from Net Documents side, we see it being able to impact the legal space in a number of different ways. There's, of course, drafting documents against a playbook perhaps that's been created within the firm historically. So instead of needing to know all of that information, the AI helps guide you down the right path as you're reviewing a new contract. There's abilities to create apps for reviewing multiple documents. Hey, we just received these 10. I always, these 10 documents, I need to know these 15 things. Instead of spending the time to go and scrub through that entire document and find all of those little points, can AI do that for me? So there are definitely a number of concerns that firms should be having around the use of AI in their work. However, if done responsibly, it can be something that, to Trevor's point, can allow the legal professionals to be human a little bit more, spend less time doing the things that are really of low value. Let the robot do that, right? And spend more time, practicing the art of law, and being a client-facing advisor, and using sort of your brain in conjunction with the robotic brain of AI.
Okay, thank you. To those watching, if you have your own perspectives to share throughout the conversation, please do post any questions or indeed observations in the Q&A here. I will surface those questions or points that you're raising to the group, and we will discuss them. We'd love to hear from you as well. So please do so. Thank you. Okay, so what I'd like to sort of move on to now is something that has been said a lot, and not only over the last year, about the potential disruptive effect of technology on the professions, namely, of course, that you may not need as many lawyers or lawyers to not do certain work that they have done in the past, and a couple of you have already touched on that. So you've all been pretty optimistic in general, I think, about the opportunities for artificial intelligence for your businesses and for your people, and we'll come on to that. But is there any concern across the firm as to what this might mean for for jobs, for career prospects, any other elements of the people proposition, I suppose? What does that look like, Graham?
At the moment, I've not come across concern. I've only come across optimism, and that's at all levels. Whether it's fee earners or our compliance team, as Sarah's alluded to, is there's a huge scope for AI making the whole compliance piece slicker and easier when looking at whether it's identifying or source of funds, that joy of working out source of funds information. So there's at the moment it's mainly optimism. I think there's a not so much concern, but an acknowledgement that this is probably going to remove some of the lower value work that has been done. But I think that is more around freeing people's time up, which, at the moment, the hope is that will be used, as both Trevor and Sarah have said, is around improving client service delivery. Clients ultimately want to speak to people, they want to interact with people. They're less bothered about the time that lawyers spend drafting a document or researching a piece. It's the interaction that they value and that they pay for. I think one of the challenges that we have as a business is actually identifying what skills we'll need to train people with. So I think until that technology develops, we don't know what skills people will need to train them with. And as Sarah said as well, it's about making sure we then take people on a journey with us as we develop those skills and embed those skills in the organisation. But at the moment, it's not clear what those skills are going to be. Just that we need to have people to have an appetite to learn those new skills and develop and see it as an opportunity to develop and progress rather than as a threat. And I think there is genuinely an opportunity for people to develop and progress rather than to see it as an end to their career. It hopefully means that they can move on to higher value work rather than dealing with the mundane day-to-day routine operational chores that they often deal with on a regular basis.
Thank you. So, Sarah, how do you see it impacting career paths, career frameworks, and how law firms like yours might need to think about the narrative around talent progression and career? Is that something that's sort of on your radar as an issue to tackle?
Definitely. I think that it just really stems from change, doesn't it? Everyone fears change, whether that's AI, whether that's legislation changes. So I think that you've always got to work out how you're going to sell the dream. You're always going to have to, and I think people, especially staff, you've got a mixed bag, haven't you? You've got some people that like to be able to take an information pack away, to digest it, consider the opportunities that are going to come from that. Alternatively, some people like one-to-ones, some people like visuals, they like pictures. So I think it's really important, if you're a business leader, whether the change is AI or any change, it's important for people to visualize it. They've got to be able to see it. They've got to be able to feel it. They've got to have that hope that you're going to deliver on everything that you're going to say. So I think it's really important that you have regular communication, as you would with any change. And it's really important to have that engagement so that they don't sit at their desk, start stewing, and then of course, then you're having gossip, negativity going around the team. So I think if you're going to start mooting the idea of AI, start introducing the policy of AI, whatever you don't just do that and not set any scene, not paint that picture, make sure that they can see the path, the end goal, and that they are part of that and how they can play a part of that. So the more people you can take on that journey, obviously the path will be way, way, way easier for you.
And we talk a lot about sort of unlocking the time of the current workforce to focus in different ways, perhaps to have a more fulfilling job or work-life balance or whatever it might be. But I wonder also in terms of firms recruiting, is there a possibility to think differently about a possibility or a need to think differently about the volume and types of people that you need and the skills that they will need to thrive in a world where artificial intelligence is doing more for us? What do you think, Sarah?
So I think we're probably quite different in relation to how we recruit, because we are similar to Trevor. Primary, number one is the people skills. We can teach you how to use AI. I pride myself that I can mentor and teach a lot of people a lot of different things, but trying to teach people skills is really hard. It's something that I just think you either have a natural flair for. So although tech, you ideally want to have someone tech savvy, that's not going to be the number one. And I am concerned that people will see AI and start recruiting people that are just tech focused. And I think that there lies the flaw in the plan, because as Graham and Trevor have both echoed, this is about freeing time up to do the people part of it. So for you to go out and recruit tech people, then you're going off piste already, aren't you? So I think that the people side is really paramount. And I would say that you're going to be wanting to have people perhaps from different backgrounds, different experiences. So one of the things that we look at when we're looking at a CV, regardless of job role, whether it's front of house, whether it is a trainee solicitor, we actually look to see whether they've had a job in the service industry. So have they had a job? Doesn't matter if it's KFC, doesn't matter if it's a local restaurant. The point is they've had to deal with difficult people, awkward conversations. They've had to defuse things, de-escalate things. Where I think that sometimes as a lawyer, when you've done a piece of work, you get very attached to it, you're very sentimental to it. And obviously you become very defensive. So the sort of skill set that you might have or might be attracted to when you're recruiting is perhaps going to shift. So I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from different industries, different sectors that law firms could make better use of. But the AI hopefully will take that sensitivity to, this is my piece of work, I did a really good job, why is the client not happy, what happened there? I just think it'll be easier for people from different sectors to process that. And obviously with apprenticeships for lawyers and stuff, you're going to attract naturally a diverse number of people, aren't you? And then, then you've got different ways of thinking things. So, having, neurodivergent people in, and the way that they process things, the way that they look at things and those different angles, it's just going to make the legal sector a better place having that. That's my take on it anyway.
Thank you. Trevor, what about from the talent perspective at Portcullis Legals? Would development in this space enable you to unlock even more time for your people to enjoy an even better work-life balance, for example, or where do you see it making most difference?
Well, it's really refreshing to hear Sarah speaking in those terms, because I think we're cut from the same cloth, really. We look for hospitality backgrounds as well, because you do need those skill set, don't you? Which is a great talent to have. Like I said, whether it's KFC, McDonald's, a hotel, it doesn't matter, does it? I think we're at an exciting time in law, really, with all the new pathways created by Silex. People can come in and they can do anything they want within law, and pathways are open to them. And with the addition of AI and just an open mindset that the world has changed, as we all know, it's certainly not the one that a few of us grew up in. And I think it's more inclusive now, which is a good thing. So we can fish for talent from different pools that maybe have not had the opportunity before. And I think AI is a critical factor in all that, because if it frees us up to be more human, it also frees us up to give more time to training, development, and entrepreneurship as well within business, and innovation. All these things that they're always buzzwords, aren't they? And we all throw them around, but to get them inside of a firm and actually do something with them is amazing. We tend to look to grow our own people, really, rather than necessarily recruit really experienced people. And that's not to say we wouldn't, but I just think sometimes if we can get people that come in from maybe a different background and we can get them into the legal process and training, that gives us a chance to portcullisify them, as it were, you know, and make them part of our culture and how we think going forward. The interesting point earlier that Graham made as well, when you asked him the question about fear, I've only seen it on two fronts, really. We've had that FOMO thing in here, you know, fear of missing out internally, where one or two have said, are we going to be quick enough and fast enough to jump on this and do it properly, which is quite an interesting take. I hope we are. I hope we are. And we're certainly, you know, invested in it. And the other one is where I've got friends who work for other law firms, usually much bigger firms than us. They're fearful because no one's having a dialogue with them at all. So middle or senior management are not really discussing it in an open way. And as Sarah touched on, you know, people need to be informed in different ways, don't they? Whether it's diagrams. I'm a diagram person. I like graphics and images, but whatever it works for those individuals, at least have that conversation, isn't it? Which aligns itself to when we did the 4-day week. It's just about having an honest debate amongst everyone, getting feedback, and then making a decision. And I think it's the same with AI. And I do feel for some people who are in firms that are not addressing the issue, because it's coming, isn't it? It's here already. So let's embrace it, see how we can work with it, and see if we can improve things for the individuals that work in the firm, the clients, and hopefully profitability as well, because, you know, we've all got to make a profit, haven't we?
Thank you very much. We've had a couple of questions. I'm going to bring them in. I just wanted to pick up on one thing first, though, and also then come to Caden. Sarah, you said that you know, you're confident you can teach someone, you know, how to use generative artificial intelligence, you know, within the right parameters and the risks and all of that sort of thing. I just wondered to the others, though, I suppose another potential concern that people might have might be this idea of adoption. You know, how they are going to be expected to use it, whether they need to be worried about the risks, or indeed whether they're going to, you know, whether they're going to have the skills themselves that are required. Is that something that's coming through at all, Trevor or Graham?
I'll jump in. Not at the moment. I mean, one of the things that we've done to address not just the AI question, but the innovation generally, is that we have a group of junior lawyers from across the firm who were involved in what we've termed as an innovation group, but they're aimed at ensuring that you know, we as a management team know what's coming, you know, what murmurings are coming from that level in terms of the needs and the asks and the problems where possibly innovation can help, but also feeding that message back down to make sure that people are aware, to Trevor's point, of making sure everybody is understanding what the firm's doing, tech-wise, innovation-wise. And those are the boots on the ground in terms of they're doing the work on a daily basis. They understand what the problems are. They understand where client service could be improved and where things might be done differently. So we use that forum to ensure that people are kept informed, people know what's going on, that what tools are available, and to swap good practice and maybe to swap lessons learned as well, just so that hopefully everybody's on the same page, and that information's there. Because I think concern arises when there's a lack of information. And it's what Sarah says, if people don't know what's going on, then they will happily make up what they think is going on, which is usually far, far worse than the reality. And they will share that with their colleagues. And before you know it, you know, what was something fairly innocent is the end of the world as they know it. And you know, we're all going to hell in a handcart. So, you know, we take the approach of sharing as much information as possible, to make sure that people know what's going on, to stop those rumours spreading, which can be damaging. And AI falls into that, is making sure we're involving people in the conversation, listening to their thoughts, listening to their ideas, and taking them away and involving them in so back to Sarah's point of involving them in the journey, so that they feel and they are involved in where we're heading. They've had an input into that. It's not just been foisted upon them.
Thank you. And Caden, has Net Documents heard or considered anything about the impact that movements in this space might have on a lawyer's or other legal professionals' career, for the better or worse?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is, it is one of the major topics around, thinking about AI. Hey, is this going to replace jobs, going to take things away? I think there have been a couple of great comments already about, the ability to embrace and adapt. And it's not that, less people may be needed. It's, hey, we can be more efficient with the amount of people we have, right? We can do more work. We can, go and service more clients. We can be more human. We can, be maybe be a little faster in our responses, and therefore increase our, the levels of service that we can provide. And so, I think there've been quite a few times throughout history where an innovation has arrived and has, maybe been viewed from a negative viewpoint as, hey, that's going to take our jobs, right? And we've always found ways to, to embrace those great things, use them to make us better at what we do, and then, charge forward, searching for that next piece of innovation that continues to make our lives even that much a little bit easier, right? And so, while we hear it, I think that most firms are realizing that it's going to be nothing but positive from an individual within every firm standpoint.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring in a comment and a question now. Alison Lobb, thank you very much, Alison. Firstly, she echoes Sarah's and indeed Trevor's comments now about recruiting people with a customer service background. She also does that all the time, she says. She's interested in what people are currently using AI for, or exploring how it might be applicable for less commercial types of work. For example, family, private client, employment. Who could tell her a little bit about how you're considering the range of work that it might be applicable for within your firms?
If I may, I'll jump in first. What we're embracing it for at the moment is where we're getting, because we're in the private client sector, obviously, where clients are asking questions. Whereas in the past, our reception team or our front desk team would then pass it on to one of us. They're actually getting the question and putting it on ChatGPT straight away. And instead of us having to write some response, we're now just sense checking it and going through it. So it makes it quicker in terms of one of our team that's qualified will look it over and correct anything if necessary. And again, humanize the response. And then we're sending that straight out to the client, as long as it's accurate, obviously. And then once we've done that, we then add that onto our socials or elements of it, so that we're seen to be giving free information away to clients. So that's the only real place we've used that, other than marketing. But it's working really well for us at the moment, and hopefully it's something we can really develop going forward.
Thank you. Sarah, how about you? You've talked about the operational side, but what about the range of legal work potentially?
My perception, I would say, looking at family and PI, because a lot of matrimonial work these days are price sensitive clients, so you're trying to do it on a shoestring all the time, and obviously they can do divorces online themselves, so it's it's becoming increasingly competitive price wise. And obviously personal injuries never really paid particularly well. So I sort of see ChatGPT being able to sort of analyze a lot of information and come up with sort of draft legal documents to a point where all of the facts, the dates, making references to specific other pieces of documents or situations or events that might have happened, to be able to collect all of that and then produce it in a legal document that looked or resembles something that's credible. And as Trevor has alluded to, I think that in that low paid work, it's just going to allow you just to be able to do sense checking rather than actually having to do all of the work that goes round. So I don't think we're probably going to look to use it for marketing. I think merely because we are trying to move away from a lot of AI, obviously the data stems from the same point. So although Trevor and Graham potentially could use it and they're going to get different things, but the reference points are very similar. So we are probably going to try to encourage sort of more innovations and maybe advertising and marketing that's more similar to other sectors, which are visuals rather than maybe articles. I mean, clients are always going to want to have information, but we're probably going to try to keep pictures and images rather than too much text. So I don't think that's somewhere we're probably going to go or spend a lot of time in, but it will be the areas that Alison has said, which do have low margins. They're the areas that we will target first, so that we can try to alleviate fee earners that they're just sense checking, rather than having to sit down there and say, you know, make reference to this. And, you know, bundles are obviously a huge part, and that doesn't just sit in litigation, which is, I know, you know, ChatGPT has been mooted around litigation and sort of almost been utopia land, isn't it? But I think there's lots of other types of work that could utilize it, and, you know, credible responses provided. Hope that helps, Alison.
Thank you. Graham, how about you? You mentioned it's a starting point, at least for now. What about if you could do some horizon scanning? Could you see it used applied to different places?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will come through. I mean, I know the big content providers, LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters, are both rushing as quickly as they can to introduce their own AI tool inside their product. So that will just be helping to surface their own content that they've got on their platforms, which will be applicable to, obviously, to all practice areas, as will the generative AI in terms of document production and document drafting. So that will have application across the piece. I think one of the things that we just possibly need to be cognizant of is that I think in due course, AI will just be a part of many different products. We're reviewing some marketing software at the moment, and they are bundling AI into that marketing platform to help identify marketing leads and to help identify prospects and cater material towards those people. So I think it's, at the moment, we look upon AI as very much a standalone thing, and we talk about ChatGPT as a thing we go and interact with and we get an output from it. I think in 12 months' time, there will be an awful lot more products on the market where AI is just a part of that product and is doing something in the background, which we probably don't even realize is AI driven. It's just a black box that sits inside the product. We put some input in, we get some output out, and it just happens to be that AI is being involved in that process. And I think that's the thing that everybody is just struggling with at the moment, is knowing what that looks like in 12 months' time. So I think we talk about AI, but I think in 12 months we'll be talking about the different products that AI has driven forward and has enhanced, and in 2, 3, 4 years' time, it'll be less. There'll be less about just AI as itself. It'll be how AI has driven other services forward.
Thank you, Hayden. What about the types of legal work that your own clients have been using Pattern Builder Max for example? Is it a mix of commercial and private client, or is it mostly commercial?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it is a mix. And I think that especially for those things that are maybe the margins aren't so good on, it's even more important to be as efficient as possible, right? And so having a tool that allows you to build those documents, based on the responses from your client that they might fill out on a form or something, and have all of that automatically created based on a standard that's been set previously within the firm, is something that is allowing for those day-to-day processes that take some time to just kind of be happening automatically or happening really quickly. And so that you can spend less time doing work for something where maybe the margins aren't quite so good, right? And so, I think that, to Sarah's point, part of the concern around AI is that, hey, eventually we're going to be using the same AI engine to provide us the same information, same outputs, and all of our work is going to start to look exactly the same, right? And so that's where part of our strategy with NetDocuments is to make the previous work within any firm kind of the brain behind the AI, right? To train your own specific model that's providing outputs that are based on the work that you've done historically, and then be able to supplement that with new information that may be surfacing around the world or things. But but finding ways to, very easily and quickly take advantage of the great work that, someone within your firm has probably done, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe you're brand new at a firm and you don't know, who's an expert in this or in that, but to be able to, very easily call upon the work that someone within your firm has done historically without knowing exactly where it is or things like that is another area where, we're seeing AI, not create everything exactly the same, but allow for that art of legal work to kind of show through even when it's produced by AI as an output, because it's your firm's data sort of driving that. So, every type of work, but both on the private side and the commercial side can benefit from those things.
Thank you. Another question / observation. The person says, I've been speaking with people at local universities and students who are learning about AI on their degrees, and the concern is that they'll come into a profession which isn't prepared for what they've been learning. So it sort of goes back to, I suppose, the point we were talking about around adoption and to what extent you might need to invest in new or different or more training to bridge any potential gap. I think most of you were sort of the view that you would be able to meet those those new recruits where they are in terms of the firm's knowledge of this area. But do any of you have any observations on that?
I think I'd be keen at someone to come in that's been through the unis, is almost recruit them and make them a champion of AI and let them try and educate the rest of the team. If we're not up to scratch, let them bring their knowledge and experience in and go from there. Whether we're ready for it or not, all we can do is be as ready as we can. But there's always those things, you don't know, don't you? So we'd be open to that, certainly. But whether we're match fit and ready for what they know, I generally don't know at this point.
It's fast moving, I suppose. So how do you ensure that you have the bandwidth in sort of SME law firms to keep on top of how fast it's moving, Sarah?
I would agree with Trevor. That's exactly what my response was, almost verbatim to what Trevor had said, is that I would just put them as a champion. That was an obvious, for me and on how we would approach it. I think the important thing is that we're open and that we're prepared to listen. And I think that goes a long way. And I think that will create patience with the person who's perhaps, a little bit ahead of the game to where the rest of the team are. So I think the fact that you're open to it, you're listening, there's dialogue, and you're working with them on a roadmap, then I think that would hopefully bridge the gap between university and obviously a small to medium-sized law firm.
Thank you. Graham?
Yeah, no, I'd agree, and I think where they'd be useful is involving them with trainers, so on and so forth, and helping them design, the skill, what's the skills matrix look like for training requirements going forward, and I think it's going to be constantly evolving. I think technical skills historically have lasted approximately 5 years, and there's an article recently that will reduce down to 2.5 years. So this is an area where that potentially would mean that an undergraduate starting their degree, their skills could be out of date by the time they finish their degree. So I think we're all going to have to get used to something that many of us will probably embrace anyway, which is just continuous learning and continuous development. And we're just going to have to make sure that there's a learning culture generally at organisations to embrace this change. I mean, if we look back to when I started my career, and you had the joy of, as you mentioned, Richard, I was a litigator, and you had the joy that if somebody wrote you a letter, you could probably sit on it for 1 or 2 days and then write back. So you knew that you probably had a week between communications. Well, if somebody said now to a younger lawyer that actually if you sent somebody an email and don't expect a reply within a short period of time, they think you were joking. We went to the library and we got books off of a shelf, then read the supplements and the update to make sure it was up to date. And we photocopied huge amounts of documents. Well, all of those basic things have already gone out of the window, and I think this is just the next iteration of an evolution in how we deliver services. And so we need to look at how we embrace it and move on.
As as Graham has said there, it is about that embracing things, isn't it? And when Caden made a brilliant point earlier about how people are fearful that change coming along will either reduce jobs or their ability to work in the legal sector. It reminds me of back in sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, when email was obviously to the fore with everyone, and the Royal Mail were fearful they were going to go out of business. There'd be nobody writing letters. Well, they don't anymore, do they, by and large, because of email? But they've evolved into delivering online services for Amazon, people like that, haven't they? So it's just a case of us embracing, what's in front. How can we turn it into an advantage for us as a firm, whatever size we are, and roll with it? And I think that's that Darwin quote, isn't it, about adapting to circumstances. That's the ones who survive. And I think we, certainly people here talking about it in an open way and embracing it in the right way, I think it's going to be a major asset to all of us, and nothing we should be fearful.
Great. Time for one more in the last 5 or so minutes, I think. On that point about turning it to your advantage, to what extent could a firm use this evolving area to create significant competitive advantage for themselves, not just for clients, but for the subject of this Tiger Team is talent. So in the so-called war for talent, how much of a competitive difference could it make, do you think, Sarah?
I think that it's you're going to have a higher probability of picking up talented people if you are at the forefront, and if you are investing, if you're not just talking the talk but walking the walk. So 2 things that we do is we quite often jump on pilots in order to be able to help input and shape them. So we're on the Land Registry's digital signature pilot. We're also on the government's property identification pilot. So I think that if we were recruiting somebody, looking for somebody that's going to embrace AI, then I think we can actually demonstrate that we are, hoping to be at the forefront of a lot of the technology changes. But I think that the sector as a whole, that law firms, I just think they will really, really evolve over the type of people that will be working in law firms. And I think there's huge benefits to being able to look at other sectors that do customer service particularly well. I mean, you've mentioned Amazon. They are very much a role model, aren't they, of adapting and understanding what clients want, what customers want. I think there's too much speculation of law firms thinking they know what clients want. So I think when you're attracting or when you're interviewing, when you're interviewing new candidates, whatever the role is within the law firm, I think you've got to talk a language that they can understand, they can be familiar with, because the younger generation are expecting to have a text message to say you've got your hair appointment tomorrow at 10 o'clock as a reminder. So being able to talk the sort of conversation that they have. And I would echo Trevor's viewpoint as well, as having staff around you already that don't want to miss out. They want to be, they want to have that conversation. They're excited about it. That's you can't put a value on that. So people like the team that Trevor has is what most people are going to want to be building over the coming years.
Thank you. Graham, Trevor mentioned having, I think you said, Trevor, your first candidate, potential candidate, asking about what the firm's stance is on this, and you gave them an answer. Graham, are you seeing people wanting to know, is it a potentially significant lever in talent attraction, retention?
Not specifically AI. We do see an interest from people in what technologies are at use and how the firm approaches service delivery and how innovative it is. So it is something which we do come across for whether it's just somebody that's moving from an organisation that they may have felt was behind the curve, or somebody that is in a particular work type where, particularly if it's a volume area such as debt recovery, where they know that they have to have appropriate systems in place in order to function efficiently. But I think the approach that we're taking internally is back to the point of rather than just talking about AI, is to talk about innovation, and to get people to think more broadly about ways of working differently, not just better, and not having that conversation as entirely tech-led. It may well be that tech and AI plays a large part in that, but it's about getting that culture in and that mindset amongst everybody that there's always better ways of doing something, and that old adage of why do we do it that way because we've always done it is not something that should be heard. We should always be looking for a different way of doing it, whether it's a different service. Going to the point that Sarah was making, there'll be different things that we will be doing to generate revenue in due course. And AI and tech will form part of that, but it's that embedding that mindset of innovation, change, and a willingness to learn.
Thank you. Hayden, finally, is the talent angle to this, which we've been talking about quite a lot today, something that that NetDocuments has factored into its thinking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's recruiting talent, but then there's also retaining talent as well, right? And I can't tell you how many times we speak to, perhaps individual end users for firms that they've been tasked with coming to us to just see, hey, is there a better way of doing these things? And they find that how unhappy they can find themselves in those firms that do adopt the mentality of, well, we've always done it this way, and this is how we'll always do it. And so, we are seeing some of our firms really use their excitement, their jump into AI specifically as a talent marketing tool to just say, hey, you could go to this firm and spend your time, doing things that aren't fun, or you could come work with us and get to the good stuff a little quicker because of the technology we're putting around you, right? So I think that it's both on the recruitment, but also on the retention side. It can be a huge asset for a firm to lean into in some of those conversations when they're competing against, perhaps a firm that's using technology from 1992 or something, which you'd be surprised at how frequently that actually comes up.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for sharing so much detail and having such a lively debate. Really appreciate it. So that is thank you, Graham Sweeney, managing partner at Schofield Sweeney, Trevor Worth, CEO at Portcullis Legals, Sarah Charlton, CEO at Eaton-Evans and Morris, and Caden Smith, who is Director of Inside Sales at our partner for the whole Tiger Team series this year at NetDocuments. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for watching and your questions, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.